Hey there guys, my name is Gambit. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be discussing the Kel-Tec RDB. So in this video, I'm going to be going over my setup, some of the system upgrades I've made, and my experience using this rifle, both the good and the bad. So for those that don't know, the RDB is a semi-automatic 5.56 bullpup rifle that ejects out the bottom here instead of out of the side like most rifles. I've always had a thing for bullpups. Personally, I think I blame Halo Reach, but I've wanted an RDB for quite a long time now, and I finally managed to get my hands on one. So, I've decided to build this out as a fighting rifle to see if this can make a compelling argument for itself in a world dominated by high quality and affordable AR-15s. Beep! The first question we have to ask ourselves is, why a bullpup? Now, I'm not going to go super deep into the pros and the cons of using a bullpup, but put very simply, short gun, long barrel. As a side note, personally I find that most of the complaints that people have about bullpups, at least in the case of the RDB, are moderately overblown. So I've made a few upgrades to mine. I've got the Hackett Defense magwell extension, Hackett Defense buttstock, and the Lucky Irishman bolt release extension. While the magwell extension and the bolt release extension are quality of life upgrades that help mitigate some of the ergonomic issues in this bullpup, personally I would consider the aftermarket stock to be a mandatory upgrade. The factory RDB stock immediately stood out to me as a failure point. It feels kind of cheap and plasticky, and I don't find it particularly comfortable to shoulder, and in fact did fail after the very first 2 rounds were fired with the stock extended. The locking mechanism that holds the stock fully extended managed to bend or break or something after the first 2 rounds were fired, so just replace that immediately. We're going to go ahead and go front to back. We're just going to give a general overview of what's on the rifle, where everything is, and then we'll go from there. Up front, we have our A2 birdcage attached to a 16-inch pencil weight barrel with an adjustable gas block. Fortunately, there's like a million gas settings on this gun, so if you want to get tuned to exactly where you want it, you can do that. Past that, we have our M-LOK handguard, so I've got a white light, foregrip pressure pads on here. And then we've got our charging handle up top, which can be locked back HK style and slapped. Up top, we've got our rail, we've got a laser and a red dot up here, and plenty of room for a magnifier should I want one. To speed run the rest of the gun, we have our ambi safety, trigger, magazine release, bolt release, magazine well, ejection chute, and of course our stock. How does the RDB compare to an AR-15 shootability-wise up close? To compare them, I took the RDB and an AR and ran the TRX Arms 50-round carbine course of fire back-to-back with each. By doing that, I got a measurable score that I can use to compare them to each other. Here are the results. Alright, I'm going to run the course 2 times back-to-back, the first time with the RDB and then the second time with the AR to compare them. Now, that does mean I will be more warmed up with the AR. However, I've been running the RDB a lot more in general recently, so I think it'll be sort of fair. After running the TRX Arms 50-round carbine assessment for both rifles and comparing them back-to-back, I have some thoughts. I ended up fumbling the reload on both platforms, although I fumbled it worse with the RDB, which resulted in the single largest time difference between the 2 rifles. Other than that, I performed slightly faster overall in nearly every drill with the RDB. As far as hits go, both were similar. However, I did throw 1 miss with the RDB during the final walking drill, which resulted in a painful penalty. The AR has a Sons of Liberty Gunworks Nox muzzle device, making it notably flat shooting for easy follow-up shots. However, it also has an LPVO on top, which I'm still getting acquainted with, slowing me down. The RDB certainly kicks more than my AR, although not much more than an AR with a non-compensating muzzle device. The recoil impulse is slower and AK-like, rather than snappy like an AR. Despite that, it manages to keep up when you put in the work. The final scores ultimately favor the AR as seen here, largely in part due to the singular miss with the RDB. Running the AR, I ended with a hit factor of 5.01, and with the RDB I had a 4.78. Both rifles performed well, and honestly it seems to me like a toss-up between them. Based on my assessment, assuming similar reliability, the RDB can hang with the AR in up-close performance. For a duty use gun, nothing really matters if it isn't reliable. So, how is it? The RDB doesn't seem to like metal magazines, which works out because I also don't like metal magazines, but it generally runs a lot better with PMags. I don't know what it is about metal mags and the RDB, but these fail to seat consistently, and I've been having a lot of double feeds while using them. Another double feed. What's it doing this? Come on, dude. I'd be lying if I were to say that I haven't had some issues while using PMags as well, but I believe those are primarily due to me being incompetent with the gas settings. I'm kind of an idiot. Once I got the gas settings figured out, it ran well with very few issues.
This blast is freaking... Oh, I did it again! Did it again!
We just had a weird, like a double fire on this gun. Like fired back to back twice. That's concerning. Could be the ammo, but we're not entirely sure. This is the ammo we were using. That just had the malfunction with it. It's from Fiocchi, Target Max, bought at Shields. Again, we're not sure if it's the ammo or if it's the gun itself. We're gonna see if we can make it do it again.
When it comes to the surprise burst mode, we've had it occur on 3 occasions now, exclusively using this Fiocchi ammo. I've run a number of different rounds through the RDB at this point, with no issues outside of this particular round. However, I don't know if I can blame the ammo exclusively, as this hasn't happened when running it through my AR.
No joy.
I have a couple of theories about what could be going on, but no definitive answers. If you want to use this rifle seriously, you're going to need to check your ammo, because this is a problem.
Reloads take a little bit of getting used to, but I find that with some practice, they're just as fast as an AR. I find that the safety, both its positioning and the amount of throw, I actually find that preferable to the AR. I don't have to adjust my grip to put it back on safe, and taking it on and off safe is incredibly natural. This rifle isn't really much lighter than a kitted out AR, but because all the weight is further back and closer to my body, I find that I can maneuver with it and I can shoulder it for a lot longer without becoming fatigued. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the RDB to a 13.7 AR. Note that the stock is extended to the length that I would actually use it at, rather than being collapsed all the way down. I feel like this is a more honest assessment of the size comparison. Nobody uses the stock fully collapsed unless you are an exceptionally small human being. In which case, there's a pot of gold missing its leprechaun, so go find it. This thing's overall compact size just makes this convenient to have around while I'm doing things. Throwing this into the back of my car, or carrying it around on a sling while trying to take care of some other task, or just lugging it around in the field. Again, it's not much lighter than an AR, but it feels way more convenient.
Alright, now let's talk about some of the downsides and the issues I have with the RDB.
Most of my issues are up front. So the pencil weight barrel, while it obviously keeps weight down, its thin profile does not inspire confidence in me for accuracy under higher volumes of fire. I would really like it if there was an option you could buy that had a thicker profile barrel. In addition to the lightweight profile, the barrel is not even remotely free-floated, as the handguard is attached via a pin that goes through the gas block here, which is obviously attached directly to the barrel. And speaking of the handguard has a little bit of wobble in it, which you will notice immediately when you pick it up. This doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be putting anything that requires a 0 on it, but it would be nice if it didn't overtly wobble. The distance between the bottom of the handguard and your top rail is going to be a bit more extreme than you're probably used to on your ARs. You're more than likely going to have to use pressure pads, as going the direct button route is a bit of an ergonomic nightmare. I've got my pressure pads set up over here on the side, attached with zip ties. A dual lead switch would be preferable, as this is a little bit crowded, but this is what I'm working with at the moment. As mentioned before, the factory stock that comes with this rifle is a problem, so I would once again recommend changing that out.
Let's briefly talk about the accuracy. In short, I must admit that I'm disappointed by the groupings I was able to get from this rifle. To be clear, I don't shoot for groups very often, but as far as I can tell, this is not an accurate gun. Here you can see 2 groups I got with the RDB using AAC 77 grain OTMs at 100 yards using a bipod. And here you can see a group I shot with my 13.7 AR using the same ammo, a lower magnification scope, and just a bag for stabilization. Neither group is particularly impressive, but the point is that the significantly larger grouping with the RDB is most likely not a result of my poor shooting. This does beg the question, if the rifle is this inaccurate at merely 100 yards, what's the point of a full-length barrel and the bullpup form factor? I've made relatively consistent hits at distance before with this, so I'm not entirely sure what happened here.
Oh, what? That was a huge difference.
Yeah, it was.
I guess it's just one data point, but if you've got one of these and it's a tack driver, let me know.
Another weird issue with the RDB is that if you take a fully loaded magazine and slam it home too hard onto a closed bolt, you can damage the brass on the top of your mag. I'll show you guys what I mean. Here's an example of a round that was damaged from having the magazine slammed in too hard. Now, I don't think that's going to actually affect the function of this round, but if you're worried about it, now you know. So the last thing I want to talk about is the downward eject.
This is going to be one of my biggest complaints about the RDB that's going to kind of disqualify it from duty use, like heavy duty use. We just had a malfunction, and look inside that chamber right there. Yeah, if that was like seriously stuck, because I don't think this one is, if that was seriously stuck, good luck getting your fingers in there to try to clear that out.
As you shoot the rifle standing up, the spent casings will fall neatly out of the way out in front of you. But I find that when you're laying down or kneeling or whatever, the casings can occasionally fall more onto you and give you some nasty burns.
One thing I've noticed shooting the RDB and kit is that the brass will sometimes fall out the bottom and land on your arm after bouncing off your plate carrier and such, so just be aware of that.
The downward eject has some interesting benefits as far as making the gun completely ambidextrous, as well as reducing perceived sound from the shooter's ear when firing, and apparently making this gun a surprisingly good suppressor host, although I actually have yet to verify that for myself, as I do not own a suppressor yet. So for those reasons, I can't put the downward eject entirely in the negative category because it does have a handful of benefits. It's kind of a mixed bag. One last thing to note, Kel-Tec is not a company that's known for insanely good quality control, so while my copy does work, yours may not, so just another thing to keep in mind. So what are my final thoughts on this gun? Understand that this is not a long-term review. I have less than 1,000 rounds on this rifle so far. But so far, I like it. It's not a perfect gun, but hey, some people have to use AKs every day. Those things suck.
It has a handful of weird quirks, but after I got the gas settings right, it's run reliably with most ammo and competes with my AR and shootability. The subpar accuracy is disappointing, but how much that matters to you will depend on your use case.
But at the end of the day, as much as I genuinely like the RDB, if I have to pick one gun to be my grab and go to war rifle, I still have to go with an AR-15. A well set up RDB is absolutely a competent rifle, and I would feel confident using this in a light duty capacity. But if I can only have one, again, it's just got to go to the AR. Although I can't tell you that the RDB is going to dethrone the AR-15, this rifle gives me hope for the near future of bullpup rifle design. Sooner, rather than later, there will be competition to America's most popular rifle. And guns like the RDB are paving the way. Thanks for watching.